You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV, where you can catch us every weekday from noon to 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm Frank Moreno, and we are privileged to still be joined by Morgan Zegers. She is the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. Morgan, thanks for sticking around. I know you and I both live in New York State, but the big difference between us is I live in a portion of the state that's being overrun with coronavirus cases, and you live in a portion of the state which has had relatively few. Our governor took a break from his 2-hour show today to talk about what criteria are going to happen for different parts of the state to be able to reopen. When do you see states reopening in general, or do you see more states doing what our state is doing and allow different parts of the state to take a different approach?
Yeah, well, loaded question. I think from that upstate New York perspective, I've actually had a lot of people that have reached out because New York really is the talking point for a lot of national news. I've had a lot of friends from rural Illinois that are dealing with that issue of Chicago has a lot of cases, but we don't. What we're concerned about is if we open up regionally, we're in the Adirondack Mountains. Are a bunch of New York City people going to drive up and bring coronavirus to our communities where I have to drive an hour to get to the local hospital? And so it's that opportunity for us. We're a very small, isolated county. Right now, I think we have about 6 deaths where I am in the county, and that's very low. Of course, those deaths are incredibly sad, and it's unfortunate that those happen. But I think we're doing a really great job as a county to stay socially distant and responsible. That being said, more and more people around us are going out. I've been going out to local farms lately to get some ice cream. Dairy farming is really big up here. And so I think more and more people are kind of sneaking out of the house and finding ways to support business in non-essential ways.
Is the responsible way to look at reopening state by state? Is it regionally? Because for a while, Governors Murphy, Cuomo, and Lamont were sort of doing this Three Musketeers routine. Or is it kind of nationwide? The nationwide option seems to be out the window because you're seeing some states open already. But is it to go county by county or city by city? Is it state by state, or is it regionally?
I think most importantly, it should never be a top-down approach. I think it's great that President Trump leads from the front in terms of boosting morale and making sure everybody's aware of the information that needs to be out there. But I think this is a state-by-state issue. Some states like New York were completely different than New York City, so you have to deal with it regionally. Other states are completely rural. We're not Wyoming out here, and so everybody needs to be treated differently. But most importantly, the people need to be trusted to be responsible and to behave safely, and we need to get the freedoms back to continue on and provide for ourselves. I'm sick of seeing so many people reliant on the government. I think the far leftists are actually happy to see more and more people relying on the government, and that's something socialists throughout history have relied on crises like this to push their narrative, and that's what's happening now. So I think it's important to get our freedoms back.
So, Morgan, we saw, when we've covered it extensively on this program, Joe Biden's denial of the Tara Reade allegations on Friday. There was rumors that she was going to do an interview this weekend, and apparently she canceled it. That's unconfirmed. It was just what the New York Times reported. I'm curious, what did you think of Joe Biden's appearance on MSNBC, and how do you think this is going to affect the campaign?
I thought it was pathetic. I've got a lot of feelings on Joe Biden specifically. I'm worried about what the Democrats' impact is going to be on our political process. We deserve transparency. We deserve information. And the Democrats are working to help Joe Biden hide these issues. I think what's also bad is they're sending a terrible message to young women. I saw a video, I don't know if you saw this, from Mika at MSNBC, where they're talking about not the Tara Reade allegations, but more so the inappropriate touching that Joe Biden is literally infamous for. And Mika goes, well, I don't know. Isn't that more, it's less sexual and it's more affectionate. Don't we want affection in our political leaders? And we shouldn't be attacking them for that. I think it sends a terrible message to young women that if a big, powerful man touches you and makes you feel uncomfortable, you should see it as affectionate and you should be more thankful that he's being affectionate to you. And so the Democrats are sending terrible messages to both young women and voters across the country. The case between Joe Biden versus Donald Trump in November 2020 is literally going to be America versus the swamp, but version 2 of that, because we had it with Hillary Clinton. It was awesome. America stood up and voted for Donald Trump. I think it's going to happen again in November.
Well, so I feel like you're conflating 2 different issues there. There's the kind of the man versus swamp matchup of Biden Trump or Hillary Trump in 2016, and I think you're right. Your analysis is right on the money. And then there's the sexual assault allegations against Biden. I mean, I'm not going to vote for Biden, but I think, for us to be hearing about these allegations for the first time, when he's running for president, when he's been a public figure for the last 28 years since this incident supposedly took place, and this is the only incident that we've seen alleging sexual assault of this magnitude. I'm not willing to give this woman who has still yet to do a television interview. I'm willing to hear her, but I'm not willing to believe her, just as I wouldn't for an accuser of Donald Trump or any other high-profile elected official.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's a good analysis of what I said, because I should have clarified what I think is more concerning. What I think is more concerning right now is just the hypocrisy and the treatment of it. It's damaging to the future of the country to have the absolute character assassination that we had with Judge Kavanaugh, where the country was literally just eating up this in the mainstream media. It was very sad to see. I remember I was actually door knocking during the 2018 elections when this was all happening, and people were crying during the Kavanaugh hearings as I was knocking on their doors because they were watching when I interrupted. And it's really a really emotional point for Americans, because they felt that Judge Kavanaugh was unfairly accused and everybody assumed and then character assassinated him. With Joe Biden, they're absolutely brushing it under the rug. You're seeing national Democratic leaders still endorsing him and not even giving her issue and her accusation any credibility or any fair judgment. And so that's what I think is needed right now, is more fairness in the treatment of survivors that come out or accusers that come out, and then of course equal treatment in terms of how we go about these politicians that are accused of these things.
All right. Final minute before we go to break, and I do hope you'll come back soon. And if people just tuning in, we're talking with Morgan Zegers. She's the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. I want to ask you about General Flynn. General Flynn, of course, was the president's national security advisor. Briefly, now we're seeing more documents revealed about how the FBI went about their investigation of General Flynn. First, they were looking at investigating him for a violation of the Logan Act, something that nobody in the history of the country has ever been charged with. And then there appears to at least have been some discussion of trying to get him to lie to investigators without an attorney present, so that he would either be prosecuted or lose his job. In your view, what does this say about the nature of how the Justice Department and the FBI do business, and how should we look at reforming this going forward?
Great question. I think this all relates back to why Donald Trump was so popular in the beginning. People feel like they are being governed and really important decisions are being made by faceless actors in the bureaucracy of our federal government. And this was a really great example. You mentioned earlier on this note that came out, it literally said, "What is our goal? To get him to lie." And so I think it's really exciting. I know it's been long. A lot of people on the Trump side have been waiting for this and actually have been disappointed that this hasn't come out earlier. They feel like it's been lost in the jumble of everything in the mainstream media. But I think the arc of the moral universe is long, and like that quote says, that it bends towards justice in the end. And I think that's what's happening here. So I'm excited to see what else comes out. And it's really nice to know that there's people in DC that are exposing the corruption for once and for all.
Well, thank you, Morgan. I would just add, I think it's a shame if what you say is true, that it's people on the Trump side that are excited about what's going to come out. To me, it shouldn't matter whether you're a Trump supporter or not. When you see the FBI trying to set up anybody, let alone a three-star general, that should raise red flags, especially among civil libertarians and among people on the left. Morgan, we will see you soon. Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
And if you're watching, we'll see you soon. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm Frank Morano, rejoined by John Tobacco momentarily. We'll be right back after the break. Hopefully you will too.